So thanks very much indeed. In a few minutes, we will take a break to stretch our legs and have coffee and tea, but it would be a great shame after some really quite stimulating presentations on data collection, starting with patient reporting the experience to date and really interesting observations based on what has been received and how we might do targeting of stimulation, I suppose, of patient reporting by different therapeutic groups, disease areas, through to harnessing the potential of new media, through to post-authorization safety studies, and then post-authorization efficacy studies. So questions, points, please take the opportunity that you have. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Emma Dufour, representing FPO. So a question for Stephen. You mentioned that not all centrally approved products and a large proportion, but not all nationally approved products would be in the publicly accessible database yet. Could you just speak to the criteria for how the products that are in there have been selected and the reasons why others are not, so we can get a feel for the timing?
Are you referring to product or substances?
Well, either really. It just wasn't completely clear to me how the decisions have been taken as to which products or substances are covered and which are not, and perhaps the criteria in your prioritization or decision making. Thank you.
Okay, so for product, we are publishing all the centrally authorized product currently. So as soon as we receive data in Multiligence, you will go on the website. For substances, we are publishing information on substances belonging to centrally authorized product, all of them, when we have data. And now we're going to publish data for, as I said, for substances authorized in national products. And for those, we started with the list of substances that are part of the signal detection activities done by member states. So these are approximately like 1,000 substances. And we added substances that are part of the EURD list. And over time, we'll carry on looking at those data, cleaning the data, and putting more and more substances online.
So just to emphasize that you won't be able to search by product name for nationally authorized products. You'll only be searching by substance name for those substances that are nationally authorized products. And as Stephen emphasized, we wanted to make sure that the data were as clean and robust and reliable as possible. So part of the fact that we'll be launching for 1,700 additional substances rather than all substances that you can find in the databases, because there's been a very labor-intensive data cleaning exercise to make sure that when you search on aspirin, you get all the aspirin reports and not things that don't contain aspirin, etc. Maybe if we start at the end, please. Yes, go ahead.
Ute Höfner, Novartis Consumer Health. Are there any initiatives ongoing to promote the reporting via physicians? Some thoughts behind here. I'm coming from OTC, so that may be reflective of that, but more than 95% of our cases are invalid for medical assessment. They are consumer cases, particularly for sensitive data to be posted on the web that may backfire on the patients afterwards. So information which used to be up to the discretion between the patient and the doctor are given obviously present in the web. So if the physician would anonymize the data, I'm particularly thinking about psychiatric data or HIV data, data which could really get patients into problems if gotten into wrong hands. Wouldn't it be better to enforce that the physicians, particularly for products with a black triangle, for example, are enforced to report? Of course, that isn't getting for free because they have to invest their time and money into it.
Paul, maybe I can throw the question to you in the context, because you've been collecting information through SCOPE. I mean, we focused today very much on patient reporting because it was the big step change of the new legislation. But the bedrock of spontaneous reporting has always been healthcare professionals. And I don't think we think it's instead of, I think we think it's as well as, and adding additional value with the patients. But the specific question about promoting use in different member states of physician reporting was the specific question.
Thanks. I think obviously the patient reporting is obviously potentially a new thing for many countries, but I think the value of it has been shown by a number of studies, and I think what we'll be doing in SCOPE is obviously trying to really explore what's been done to promote both patient and healthcare professional reporting, to give member states tools that they might be able to deploy if they want to. But I think around the sort of the question partly around the sort of data confidentiality side. I'm not sure. I mean, certainly from the MHRA, what we publish on our website is very similar. I think the data wouldn't be considered sort of identifiable from that sort of high-level data. But obviously the anonymisation of it and the protection of confidentiality is very important. I hope that's...
And maybe just to enrich that, the last part of that, we mentioned substances versus products on the database. One of the reasons we're not yet releasing or going to release product name for nationally authorised product is because if you've got a product that's only on a very small market and you're thinking of perhaps an orphan indication, potentially you can then work out who the patient is. For centrally authorised products, we've got 500 million people in Europe, but with some of the national product names, it may be a very small market. And that's all about ensuring that we fully respect personal data protection legislation. So, please, there was another question. Please, go ahead.
Hello, Cristina Cabrita from Bilk. I have a question regarding the apps, the phone apps. Does the project is only apply in UK, or can it be used in other European countries with the proper translation? And other things that strike me, and as Francois said, some countries have very low reports. And as we move to other gadget, to other form to data collection, my worry is that could be the investment of improving the old tools, and this could be a concern. The other one is the confidentiality of data if we use social media, but I think that is going to be covered in your consortium.
So Mick Foy, multilingualism, is it a UK app or is it an EU app?
It's an EU app. It's very clear in the requirements from the IMI that it should be publicly available free of charge at the end of the project. What we're planning to do is to have some early adopters of the app. So UK will be one, Croatia will be another, which will effectively pilot the app, and Francois and his team will be user testing it with some other colleagues. So the aim is to have some early adopters, UK, Croatia, learn what we can from the uptake and the feedback and the user testing, and then make it publicly available. What will be publicly available is to for member states, what we anticipate member states will do is pick up the skin or pick up the core of the app and then put their own skin on it. So what I mean by that is in the UK, the app will be the same as the app used by the Croatian agency, but we will put our own yellow card branding over it, so it looks like it's a UK specific app for users here, and Croatia will do the same, and then as it becomes more available, other countries will do the same thing. So it will be a yellow card app in the UK, but it will be the same app that we'll all be using. I hope that helps. On the low levels of reporting comment, I think it goes back to, I guess, what I was saying in my presentation, that we still have paper forms, we still have telephone. This is not instead of. I think we're trying to make reporting as accessible to all, and people now using this media will prefer to use the app. Other people will prefer to use the phone or the paper form.
Time for one or two more questions, please. Go ahead.
Hi, Ansela from Health Action International. I have a question to Francois.
Come closer to the mic. You've got a soft voice.
Yeah, sorry. I have a question to Francois. Do you happen to know which are the main, let's say, distinctive characteristics of the countries where direct patient reporting is higher? I noted down like Netherlands, I think Sweden and Belgium.
I think this would be an excellent question to conduct more research, but the first response, the first thing I would think of is that these countries have systems to capture patient reporting for many years now, with LAREB, with Kilan in Sweden, and Testasha in Belgium, before the Belgium agency developed its own system. So I think there are countries with a long-lasting tradition of communicating to patients that they can report, and the tools that go with it, not only the online tools, but others. Others that came in late and in the middle, others which I think need to revise quite a lot the tools they have. They've been trying to promote, but they're not maybe working. So there are both issues of tradition and communication, and ease of use of the tools that may explain the differences.
And a very nice question, actually, in terms of linking the second session to the first session, because in the first session we were hearing about scope, which was all going to be about sharing experience as to what has worked and good practice. And I would imagine that exact question will be being asked within scope. Why have you got high levels of reporting in the Netherlands, for example, and what could be copied in other member states to see if they can replicate? And if it, in an ideal world, it would then lead to the situation that Francois talked about, where if all countries had the Netherlands level, then you'd have, 700 and something thousand patient reports. Yes. Last question, then we'll grab some tea. Please, over to you.
Sinia Skola, Sinia Skola from FBI. I have a question to Almat about PASS. One of the things that industry has picked up is the possible impact of the EU data protection regulation that may severely restrict the epidemiological study and using the registries as a source. Does Emma, do you have a position regarding that? What's your view?
Do you want me to?
EMA has a strategy group looking at registries. So, Peter, I don't know if you wanted to judge what can be shared.
Okay, but then maybe if you want to give reflections from a more scientific or from a member state point of view, also just to say we did make representations to DG Justice before the adoption of the legal proposal on personal data protection, and it was basically making the clear call for the need for secondary use of healthcare data for research to support regulatory decision making. And that was very well received. And if you look at the original proposal from the Commission, it did embrace secondary use of healthcare data. Now, there have been various proposals and amendments going through, and I have to say I'm not crystal clear on the exact status at the moment, but when that gets finalised, we will then come into action to support its implementation, to ensure that we find ways of supporting secondary use of healthcare data, which I think is the key issue, while also fully complying with that legislation. I don't know, Ulva, from a more scientific point of view, if you want to.
No, I think that captures it, and I guess it was part of why I was suggesting that it's important when you're thinking about feasibility to really be thinking about what would be any of the constraints in terms of, utilising existing infrastructure, which is often actually disease registries. But I think there are, solutions here if you think about them sufficiently, and some of it is around secondary use of data, also experience with pseudo-anonymisation, and there are solutions, but they really need to be thought through at quite an early stage, so that where you're proposing to generate the data turns out to be feasible. But I think it's an area that we'll have to explore further, and I guess in some of the discussions around joint studies, but also in terms of the need for dialogue on pharmacovigilance planning, it's something that it need to be explored further.